Piece of garbage.
Well, you said it. You know, it's not a piece of garbage.
Oh,
Anime. We love it, don't we?
yeah.
It's the best.
Look at all the anime.
We like anime.
Tried to grab some games and the calculator blocked me. I didn't want to knock the calculator over, so just pretend like it was Dragon Ball Budokai
Something or other.
2, 3, and I don't know, some kind of kanji.
Yeah. So this was kind of an idea that you had last week, where we wanted to talk about what live action adaptations for anime would actually work, because so far they don't.
No. And I guess one of the reasons that made me think that is because last week we were talking about the Fullmetal Alchemist live action remake. And we were like, it's gonna be bad for a few different reasons. It's like, if you want to go look at that, go look at it. And then at the end we started talking about, like, there would be certain anime that we could see becoming it, like Cowboy Bebop, which is actually getting a television show on Hulu? Or is it Amazon?
They were looking at possibly doing it on streaming services, yeah.
Okay, because it should definitely be on Netflix, because
Yeah.
that's all I have. But I feel like some anime could really become decent, real world adaptations. You just gotta find it, and you gotta let the right people work on it.
Oh my goodness, I just had a really good one come to mind. Dot Hack Sign. I think a live action adaptation of the whole trapped in an online video game would work. Sword Art Online, I think, may actually work.
I think if it wasn't so rushed, maybe.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, definitely slow it down. You would have to.
Because when I first watched it, I was super into it, but I was like 16 when it first came out.
You're talking about SAO, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And like me and Wyatt, we were both watching that at the same time, and like we really loved it. And like a year later, we were like, "What the heck? What was wrong with that show?" And other than it being just like a super teenage love story at the end, which was garbage. It was just so fast. Like, they ended it on the 74th floor. You didn't even get to see all the way up to... I was like, it's going to get to the Ruby Palace, and he's going to have to... I knew that he was going to have to fight the dude that made the video game.
Yeah.
And then he did, but it was right after they fought a really cool-looking boss, and it wasn't even at the last floor of the game. And it was just because he was like, oh... Wait a minute.
The ending wasn't earned.
No, it was like we need to get this out.
Like, I'm not saying use filler to slow things down, but you could have inserted some subplots. You could have...
Oh, yeah. It's an RPG video game anime. Like, you can't think of some side quest that would look like... Naruto literally has a filler arc about a triathlon, I think. Or just like a giant run. And it's like, there's people that are just running. They're not ninjas. They just run. And there's like some weird bet going on between families. And there's like, they have ninjas trying to kill them. And like Naruto, like Kid Naruto and his group have to protect this one guy. That's an entire arc. That's like, I think maybe 20 episodes.
Yeah.
I don't know how you could do that, but they managed to do it. And you can do it without making it garbage.
It's interesting how you can, because to me filler is, another word for filler is pace killer, when you're just basically filling time between sagas. It seems like this is strange, but American television has made it so that they know how to pace things now. Like just watching like, the Arrowverse shows, Arrow, Flash, I almost said League of Legends, Legends of Tomorrow.
They did a very good job with the Echo cinematic that was 2 minutes long. I don't even think it was that long.
It's like all that stuff is paced well, and everything just kind of flows. I don't see why you can't do that with why anime has such a hard time doing it. And most anime, not all, but most anime it is an adaptation of a manga. I want to say Gundam is one of the exceptions where if you have a manga for that, the manga is based off the anime. But that's very rare that happens. So what you could do with the nice thing that you could actually do with the live action version, and I think are we specifically talking about like American done live action?
Not specifically. I think just like something that, because like Cowboy Bebop, it is being American made, but just the show itself gives off the feel of like this could be like if it wasn't an anime and it was just like an original like show concept that someone made up, I feel like it would do well. It just has like just watching the anime, you just have a sense of like I could definitely see this being like.
It kind of has a Firefly feel to it.
A little bit.
Or Firefly has a Cowboy Bebop feel to it because it technically
came after.
I want to say the same thing, and it's kind of in the same genre, but Outlaw Star, I think would make a really, really interesting live action because it's sci-fi. We've been doing sci-fi and TV for years with Star Trek, so you could do it.
Oh yeah,
it could be done very easily, and just having like it has. I think when you have a good mix of characters that are very different from each other. Look no further than Cowboy Bebop. Why that would work? They're all fully developed characters. They're completely different from each other. They all have different motivations, which creates conflict within the crew. We have shows like that already that work. Let's see, what else? What other series would work? I feel like Trigun would work.
I feel like it could. So I think last time I was saying that like it might be like a little bumpy, but I think what's that Western that's out? Westworld. I haven't really heard anything about that just because like I haven't watched it and I don't really know anyone else who has watched it, so I don't know if it's good or bad. But like it's kind of like a step in that direction, but
yeah,
of it being like a futuristic Western, but this being like full on futuristic Western.
The thing with Trigun that it would hinge on is who you cast as Vash. If you don't cast the right person, the whole show would fall apart. You need an actor who can do really zany, goofy, just like goofy like antics, like the character Goofy, like being able to like fall off of a building and somehow be okay, all the way to being like soul crushing depression because all the people around you are dying. And that's, I think, the strength of that's the strength of any anime. An anime that's able to be 100% on one spectrum and go to the other side of the spectrum. Not even necessarily within the same episode. Like, it doesn't have to do that, but if within the series it can do that, and it works, you have a good series. I think one series that I watched that was just so depressing, like I couldn't get through all of it, was Wolf's Rain. Gorgeous music, gorgeous animation. Just so depressing, so sad. Like there was no hope in it at all. Anytime something could go bad, it happened. And I just was like, what was the point of this? Other than having pretty images on screen matched with gorgeous music.
You know, I think with you mentioning Sword Art Online and .hack, I kind of want to throw in Log Horizon.
Haven't heard of that one.
It's pretty similar to both of them. It's like a bunch of people get trapped in a video game, but instead of them trying to figure out how to get out, it's them just like accepting
and living their lives.
Yeah, because basically it's to the point to where like it's not a video game anymore. Like everything that they do is so fluid, and like they start like just accepting their new world.
Mm-hmm.
Like I could kind of see something like that.
I kind of feel like Lost, even though it wasn't a video game they were stuck in, Lost kind of had that feel to it, though. So I think if you kind of followed that formula, you could have it work.
I forgot the rest of it, but I was trying to think of like mech anime that could possibly be done, because like immediately pops in my head is like Gurren Lagann, but I don't want it to happen just because it's so good now. I just don't want its name to be ruined.
Gurren Lagann, I think it gets. I think it's some parts of it get into like Dragon Ball Z territory where it's like you just can't represent.
Especially
that.
the end. The end is very like
trippy.
It's just a power trip,
right?
Of one upping the next. But then I started thinking of maybe like Gargantia. Just because it has a mech in it,
mm-hmm.
but there's not a whole lot of mech fighting. But I feel
why
like
not?
Maybe it could do well.
Why not Gundam? Pick any one of the Gundam series, with the exception of maybe G Gundam, because that's a little bit. Again, we're getting into Dragon Ball Z territory with that. But Gundam Wing, or like Zeta Gundam.
That's another one I don't know about.
What, Gundam?
No, Zammed of the Lost Memories. If you haven't heard of it, watch it. It has very, very good animation. Like it's fluid and everything just looks really pretty. And the story of it, it's a little confusing at first, but if you watch it the first time a little bit, it may seem confusing to you. You might get it. If you watch it a second time, things make a little bit more sense. Just great anime overall. I would love to see that get a real life adaptation, but I don't know how. It would have to just be like, I feel like it would have to be made by the people who do Game of Thrones for it to work.
Here's an idea of one, and I feel like it could work as like a CW show. One Punch Man.
I was thinking about One Punch Man. Because there are different. It's supposed to be making fun of like, you know, most superhero movies of like, you know, they're strong, and then they have to just keep fighting like new and stronger enemies, and then but they basically come out on top. In the end, they're always going to come out on top. This, for One Punch Man, it's just like he's always going to be on top. You don't watch it for Saitama. That's not true. You watch it for him, but the other characters, when it's just them fighting without Saitama, it's still entertaining.
Yeah.
Because it, like watching superhero like shows and movies, you know, like you know they're gonna win, but you want to see how it happens, and you know there's definitely like a struggle, but you know the good guy's gonna win, but it's still entertaining to watch it, and it's even more entertaining to watch it when it's, you know, animated.
And you could definitely like see, and the thing that live action adaptations of anything, you kind of have to strike a balance between the source material. You need to have the source material there. That needs to be the basis for everything. But then you have to put your own spin on it. What will work in that medium? It's like when you take a book and you adapt it into a screenplay for a movie. You can't just shoot a book. You can't. Like, it really irritates me when, like, I'm one of those people, I will argue all day with someone. Lord of the Rings, the movie, is the perfect example of an adaptation of books into a film. It's just perfect. You include the things you need to include. You omit the parts that really don't make any sense to anyone. But then you work them in different parts of the story where that does make sense. And I feel like you have to do that. It's called an adaptation for a reason. It's not going to be the same thing, shot for shot. Whatever they did in the anime, you're going to film that, you're going to have the script be exactly the same. It's not going to happen. And I feel like we get to a point where we expect that. So there's this balancing act that they have to play where it's like you're not completely, ruining that base material. But at the same time, you have to make it work for the medium you're working in. So if you took the best of what's currently working in live action shows that are not adaptations and mix it with the source material, you're going to have a winning combination. Honestly, now that I think about it, with what started this conversation was the Fullmetal Alchemist trailer. I feel like Fullmetal Alchemist might actually be able to work as a live action show.
I could see it.
But it would have to be shot by either American filmmakers or European filmmakers that would actually shoot it to look like it's meant to be shot. You wouldn't.
And when thinking about these, like, you think about, like, how they're done animated, like, there are things you can do animated and have it look good, and, like, you think about it, how it would be done in, like, real life, it's like, you would have to just be amazing at your job for it to look good.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of had this in mind of, like, just thinking of, like, the story and just the written material, I feel like would be able to make a good live action remake. Like,
right.
Not exactly like, episode for episode type deal, because like I feel like a lot of that wouldn't be able to like live up to the anime. But if done right and done by the right people, these would look really good.
And I feel like Fullmetal Alchemist, regardless of the series you're talking about, they're paced very well. There's really no filler in those shows. Every single episode has to do with the main purpose of Edward and Alphonse.
Yeah.
So if you did an adaptation, like I can just imagine like that first scene from the original series where you first see him transmute from the sand and he makes the staff come out of the sand. It's like all slow motion. You got all the electricity crackling, and it's a very impactful scene. Just thinking of that scene translate from animation to live action, it would look amazing done live. I think you could even do that. I think one way to really acknowledge the source material is you do certain things shot for shot. Like that scene, if they did shot for shot comparison with, they even did that with the Ghost in the Shell movie. I think it's called the shelling sequence when she gets created.
Mm-hmm.
They ripped that straight from the anime.
Ooh, Psycho-Pass.
Never heard of that either.
What? When I move in, we're going to have to watch a few things.
Okay.
That's a little unacceptable. That was an amazing anime that came out. I think it came out 2015. It was great.
That's why I honestly haven't been watching anime that's been out recently.
I haven't really been either, just because nothing's really caught in my eye.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm still kind of looking.
Yeah.
But that one actually came out on Netflix, I believe. I'm pretty sure it came from Netflix. But that was really good. But now I'm trying to think of ones that like aren't necessarily like super action. Maybe I think.
Well, that's why Dot Hack Sign came to mind, because a lot of that show is dialogue, just characters talking to each other. It's not really action based.
Have you ever seen Erased?
Mm-mm.
I think I may have talked about it. Maybe. I don't know if I've talked about it on the show before. That was a really good, I guess, technically supernatural. I don't know if it'd be considered detective. I guess maybe kind of, but that was a really good anime. It's basically this guy, it's not explained, and he's the only one that this happens to. Like, if something bad happens near him, or I guess just around him, he'll see like a butterfly, but it's a very strange looking butterfly fly by him, and then he's like, time is rewound by like 30 or 40 seconds, and
he can change.
It starts off with him like he's delivering a pizza, and then he sees the butterfly, or he sees like a kid's waiting at a crosswalk. He's delivering a pizza. He's going. He sees a truck driving by, and then he sees the butterfly, and then he's backwards again, and he notices that the truck driver is like passed out, and he looks behind him and he sees the kids getting ready to cross. So he like turns around and he maneuvers the truck out of the way. He gets severely damaged, but the kid ends up living because of it. And then it gets to the point to where like it starts. His mom comes into town to like help him because he was hurt. So she's just there just to like help take care of him, and then she gets murdered. But it wasn't the first time that he was around this murderer. Mm-hmm. But then he gets blamed for it.
And this is an anime?
It's an anime. And it, like, cops like come in, or like a neighbor calls the cops because they see like he's covered in blood, but he was like trying to take the knife out of his mom, and like the cops are like telling him to like stop, and then he needs to like come with them and like
be arrested.
Yeah, and he's like, I didn't do it, but he's not saying anything. He's just freaking out because he doesn't know what to do.
Right.
So then he just starts running away, and then I think he like jumped off of something, and then like he opens his eyes and he's like walking to elementary school, and it has to do with like this crazy series of murders that like happened in his class back in 3rd grade, and it's like the same murderer who killed his mom killed a girl in his class. And then he basically starts like, oh, I can save her from dying this time. So, and then he in doing that he's able to like figure out who the murderer is and like save his mom. And then this really cool, and the concept of like rewinding time doesn't happen very much, but it's still like a very unique way to tell a story.
Positive take on the butterfly effect.
Yeah. It's
never watched the butterfly effect.
Oh, I thought you were just talking about.
No, I'm talking about the movie.
I didn't know there was a movie.
Ashton Kutcher.
I didn't know there was a movie called The Butterfly Effect.
You've seen Daredevil?
Yeah.
Foggy.
Mm-hmm.
That actor plays his best friend, and he's exactly the same character. Terrible actor. But yeah, I think we might have exhausted our time on this topic, but yeah, I think that there are definitely a lot of series out there that could work. You just have to do it and go about it the right way. I think the problem with a lot of live action adaptations is they don't put enough time into them, and they don't, like Full Metal Alchemist, like you said, the whole casting situation where you're casting Japanese actors to characters that are obviously not Japanese, it's going to take something away from it.
Yeah.
So I feel like you do have to match the aesthetic of the show, including the characters, and you have to make it work in the medium. If you do those two things, you're probably going to have a hit, or at least a good version of the show.
Ooh, Samurai Champloo to end on.
Rurouni Kenshin.
Rurouni Kenshin.
And that's a show you can cast as many Asians as you want, because it makes sense. It takes place in, what's the name of the era that they keep talking about?
I have no idea.
It's like basically 1800s Japan.